Good morning, everybody. I'm Matilda De Silva. I'm your host for this morning. And today, it's really all about jobs, jobs, jobs. Welcome to Heartbeat at Bedok's Learn, Upgrade, Accomplish. This is a skills and jobs upgrading sharing that is brought to you by Heartbeat at Bedok, of course, Skills Future Singapore, the Lifelong Learning Institute, FastJobs Singapore, as well as our invited guest speaker from Sports Psych Consulting. All right, so let's kickstart everything today. We're going to be speaking to Junior Lim Tu An from the Lifelong Learning Institute. Now, this is really all about if you have been looking to upgrade your skills for career progression or even a transition in the current job scope that you are in, but you're not so sure where to start, then this is really something that you need to be paying attention to. Now, we're going to be speaking to Skills Future Singapore's skills ambassadors to identify your skills needs and gaps, as well as gain useful tips and advice on how to kickstart your skills search. They are also going to be in the chat right now in our Facebook live stream, and they're going to be answering some of the questions that you have. Of course, we're going to try and see if Junior can also share with us a little bit more about some of these activities and also answer some of your questions. So, as mentioned, please drop all of your questions. They can be as intense or as burning as possible. Let's try to get to the core of what this is all about. We're going to kickstart it with learning. So Junior, welcome.
Hi Matilda, thank you so much for the very, very wonderful introduction. So, to all the residents that are tuning in, hi, my name is Junior. So, here to actually share with you about skills and training advisory. So, can we have the slides?
Okay, no problem.
All right. Okay, so basically we have a deck of slides to really share and showcase to you what are you guys seeing. At the same time to have a more visual explanation to what I'll be sharing as well. All right, so this is me. Okay, so my name is Lim Tu An Jr. I'm a skills ambassador with Skills Future Singapore from the Lifelong Learning Institute. All right, so why I'm here today is really to share with you what skills and training advisory is about. So we are a service that is actually brought to you by Skills Future Singapore to help all Singaporeans to identify your skills and training needs to support your growth, your career journeys, and also recommend suitable courses and programs if you are keen to upgrade and upskill yourself. Okay, so what is skills and training advisory and what does it entail for you as an individual? Well, what we will get is actually one, receive a personalized advisory and guidance from our skills ambassadors to actually help you on your own career journey, on learning, and of course, end of the day, to reach into an employment. So we always talk about jobs in the market today. We talked about being paid for a job. That is, of course, the best and most important thing. But ultimately, if you enjoy doing what you are actually working and get paid doing so, I think it will be an even greater advantage and benefit for you. If you do not know your interests, well, the Skills Ambassador can help you as well to identify your skills as well as your training needs. And of course, after identifying your skills and training, we will then also recommend suitable courses and training recommendations for you to actually pursue it. And of course, end of the day, if you still need further help, we are here to guide you in terms of providing you with the necessary tools and resources to support your own career journey or goal itself. So, in the summary, what I was sharing is actually planning your own career plan or pathways. So, a process to do this is a very straightforward 3 steps that we have actually shared with individuals as well. One is really step 1. Doing self-reflection. I think knowing yourself is important, knowing what you like, what you don't like, and how can we leverage that to be seeking for employment or job opportunities that will make you happy. So that itself will be the goal setting, and of course, developing a plan. Where skills and training advisory comes in is we are here to help you develop that plan. So you don't have to do it alone. And if you are uncertain about it, well, we're here to help. On top of that, we do have resources readily available for you 24/7, and that is actually found on our portal. It is called myskillsfuture.gov.sg. All right, so in this portal, we have a myriad of resources available for you, from discovering yourself. So we have actually partnered with leading personality assessment tools to identify your skills, interests, your skills confidence, your career interests, skills confidence, as well as your work values. So these are actually psychometric assessments that you can actually take on, embark on yourself to get to know yourself a little better. We also have industrial information readily available for the changing job market that's happening. We all know COVID has hit us, and as we slowly progressed out, job market has fundamentally shifted as well. So with this shift, there are actually new jobs being created. And what are these new jobs? In our industrial information, we will actually be showcasing that information for you to read up, to plan ahead. Of course, then we are talking about upscaling yourself. Our portal is also a depository of all the available courses that are actually supported by SkillsFuture Singapore in terms of our various schemes, and it is a one-stop portal for you to search on the right course or the suitable course that you are interested in. Of course, having said all this, we will also have articles that actually help to prepare yourself, to equip yourself on the changing market and what to do. Simple things from career preparation all the way to the final one is actually looking for a job. How do you actually want to perform in terms of applying for a job and where the jobs are? We will actually have the resources all packed in one portal for your convenience. Next, if you are 25-year-old and above, what we would be keen to, as a Singaporean citizen, you would be eligible for what we call the SkillsFuture credit. So this credit is actually made available for all Singaporeans 25 and above. And what will happen is in last year, October, there was actually a top-up. So if you have not used your SkillsFuture credit, what's stopping you? If you are still uncertain about using your SkillsFuture credit, feel free to check in with us. Skills Ambassador, we are here to help you with it. The other program that I would like to share is actually the SG United Skills Program. So this is actually two programs that was launched during this period, and it is actually known as the SG United Skills Program, as well as the Mid-Career Pathways Program. It's really about rescaling yourselves for future job roles, and the courses range from 6 months all the way up to 12 months. On top of that, to help you overcome the training challenges, we do provide a monthly training allowance of from 1,002 to 1,005. And of course, it is eligible for SkillsFuture credit to use to offset or defray the cost of these programs as well. Key information I would like to share at this point of time is that in the recent budget, these two programs have been extended for an additional year itself. So it will end in 31st March 2022. So this is to encourage all Singaporeans to take this opportunity to encourage themselves, to upskill themselves, and to future-proof themselves for the changing job market. It is extended. Training partners are coming on board. And if you have difficulty trying to identify what course would be helpful to you, well, Skills Ambassador is here to help. All right, so if you ask me in a nutshell, I think the best investment in 2021 is skills upgrading. So invest in yourself, take up a skills upgrading today, and future-proof yourself for what is to happen. All right. If you need assistance or want more help with regards to the skills and training advisory, but not sure how, well, up in the screen right now, you can actually see a QR code or a link called the go.gov.sg STA Outreach. There will be a short, simple form for you to fill up. And at the last question, you can actually just key in heartbeat, H-E-A-R-T, beat, V-E-A-T, to actually share where you actually heard about us so that my skills ambassadors can actually contact you to find out more about your skills and training needs. So we'll just take a while as this page is on. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the live chat, and I will try our best to answer your questions. So if there's anything, if not, Matilda.
Okay, thank you so much, Junior. Thank you for sharing all of that information with
Matilda.
me. So I have a burning question.
All right.
What have you spent your Skills Future credits on?
So I've actually spent on upgrading courses. So the most recent course I'm taking is actually the advanced ACLP or Learning and Performance certification. So it's something that I'm taking on my own to upskill and enhance my skill sets as well. So Matilda, have you actually started or used your Skills Future credit?
Yeah, that's another question right now. Yes, I have. I have $300 left because I'm actively using my Skills Future credit.
Excellent.
I'm also taking ACLP as well.
Okay,
So
okay, that's good.
that's something that I find. Well, I felt that a lot of my family members actually are already ACTA. At the time, it was called ACTA.
Yes.
They were already ACTA certified, and so the thing that they kept telling me was, you need to go and upgrade your skills. And I'm like, oh, I don't have time. I'm a TV producer. I'm so busy. And what more skills do I need to upgrade, right? I can Google it. And so I'm sure that there are many people that are watching this right now who are also in that frame of mind, right? And then we throw on that the extra layer of COVID-19 and all of the challenges that the pandemic brings with us. What do you have to say to people that are literally going, why should I upskill? Why is this something that is important for me right now?
Okay, maybe I can try to answer that question. I think in the current, since COVID-19, a lot of push has happened. I think you have seen a lot of traditional jobs fundamentally shifted or pushed to be digitized. So what happens is, I think with this digitization, how certain jobs that we never thought could be moved to work from home or move on an online medium suddenly became reality. And when that happens, it has fundamentally shifted jobs itself. So with digitization, you need lesser manpower, but you need new skills so that you can actually leverage on these technologies itself. This is where I think the government on the whole has actually rolled out a few initiatives to actually help in terms from IMDA, with even the skills, the digital office. So there's this huge push to encourage Singaporean citizens to be equipped with the necessary skill sets in terms of IT. And that's where Skills Future are also joining in to support individuals so that we are equipped, or to use a better word, future-proof ourselves for the new jobs that are being created. Traditional jobs have also been shifted out, meaning that they are no longer relevant. Then it brings down to a very underlying message that I think even our PM mentioned when we were shifting to phase 2. He says fundamentally, Singaporeans need to reinvent themselves. So I think it's a good message to share, and a very candid way of saying that in today's job market, you need to have the right skills for the right jobs at this point in time. And we have a lot of new jobs coming up. So the challenge is, are you equipped with the right skills for these roles?
Fantastic. I mean, you've heard it from Junior himself, right? Even if he is actually working or leading this organization, he himself also goes off and uses his Skills Future credit and attends these upgrading skill sessions. So that's what it means to really lead from the front, or to take that initiative. So another thing that I wanted to ask, I mean, we are maybe because of the fact that with the pandemic, we're very focused on what's happening with us. Maybe in a global context, right? Compared to the unemployment issue that is happening in many different countries. What are some of the ways that we are actually very lucky to be having the availability of so much of this funding that comes towards mid-employment. Or mid-level, or even older workers that are able to have access to that kind of skills and funding.
Okay, so what we have done, or Skills Future have done, we actually roll out a few initiatives. One, a lot of Singaporeans may not be familiar, is actually what we call the skills framework. So these are actually roadmaps for sectors of work that has development, changes, and as individuals, for you to take a look at it to plan where will your careers go. What is your job? And in many cases, I think as individuals, when we start employment, we will eventually move into a routine. Morning, go to work, afternoon, go home, family time, so on and so forth. And in a blink of an eye, it has been a decade. And you might be where you are, and you may even start to ask yourself questions like, what's next
Yep.
in my career, what's next in my job. So having this skills framework helps you to plan ahead. Okay, this is where I am now. This is where I can achieve or goal. So how do I actually work towards it? So this is actually something that Skills Future Singapore, we are actually working with industry players, partners, to actually produce these roadmaps so that it will help Singaporeans better navigate their journeys ahead in their own careers as well. To support that in the current COVID-19 situation, as I shared earlier, we have the SG United Skills Program as well as the Mid-Career Pathways. These programs are actually earmarked in the sectors that we have seen to have growth opportunities after this pandemic. So what happens is the causes are new, the employment that may be result from the course that you take will also be new. So as what I have shared earlier, it's really about future-proofing yourselves for the new jobs that are going to be created in job market. And we are all looking forward to be moving out of this pandemic, and this is something that we need to strongly encourage individuals so that we have the right skills for the right jobs when it comes along in time to come.
And I think what's interesting is you guys look at like industry trends globally, right? And try to figure out like how do we match that with the industry trends in Singapore and like, you know, and how we then map that out. Speaking about what you just mentioned, right? I mean, I was a TV producer for like many years, like you said, right? You do the job day in, day out, you know, didn't get promoted. And you just kind of go like, okay, it's been 10 years. You know, one day you wake up and you're like, I've been working here for 10 years. What's going on, right? And I never realized that there are actually, for each industry that's in Singapore, whether it's creative media professionals or whatever that is, there are actually tracks. You know, there's a whole career progression and like, you know, what additional skills you require if you want to be a specialist in the track. So if I wanted to be a specialized producer or director, or if I wanted to go into managerial or like, you know, or senior management, there's another track. And I didn't realize this until I actually took the ACLP course, you know, at the Lifelong Learning Institute. And this was where I was like, nobody tells us that, you know. And in fact, we had a few course mates that were in HR and they were like, I didn't know about that either. And I was like, hey, you HR and then you don't know? But this is the thing that, you know, do you kind of experience that where like a lot of people don't actually know that there has been research that is conducted about this and like, you know, and how you can plan your career trajectory?
Well, we do see that there are quite a fair bit of Singaporeans that are still unaware of this, hence why I think in the last year itself, we have actually been promoting this, and where skills and training advisory comes in, the skills ambassadors are equipped to actually share. Of course, end of the day, there are a lot of skills framework. It may not be for you. So really going back down to the basics and the fundamentals, what is your interest? And from that interest, then we will see whether are there career tracks that you can develop, or in career speak, we would like to use the term deep skills. Develop that deep skills so that you become a specialist, you become well sought after so that you are valued, and that becomes your unique selling point in terms of employment opportunities when it come about. Why should they hire you? Because I'm a specialist in my field. So that is how we looked at it in a very macro perspective, and keeping it simple in terms of the messaging that we're putting across. If, as an individual right now, to all the residents that are watching it, and you are keen to actually find out more about the skills framework, how it can help you, feel free to come and visit us at our Lifelong Learning Institute, Lifelong Learning Exploration Center. We do have a physical center for you to actually walk in to seek skills and training advisory, as well as to explore a little bit more about yourself.
Even now, like, you know,
Okay,
with
so,
they just have to do all their temperature checks and everything, and they can
Yes,
still come and
okay.
visit you.
Of course, we are open Mondays to Fridays. If you are keen to walk in, feel free. It's free for all Singaporeans to actually come down, have a little journey to explore in terms of your individual skills, what are my interests. And of course, end of the day, after your journey, if you need additional help on upgrading to bridging skills gap, the skills ambassador is here to help you out.
Exactly. I mean, you know, as Singaporeans, right, we need to really kind of make use, right, of all of these goodies that are coming to us. And like, you know, and since this is also a time of where we can't travel and, you know, we have a bit more time on our hands, right, now is also the time for us to really start thinking about where is our career going, what do we want to do with ourselves. it's not just about I want to get promoted, right, and lateral progression. It's also about like, sorry, not the vertical progression, but like horizontally as well. You might be wanting to move into maybe more of a training scope or more of a mentorship scope, or maybe even like, entering into a different division. And that's what that Skills Future framework is so interesting, like you really deep dive into your industry and understand what perspectives or, what possibilities are available.
And I think moving forward, I think a lot of organizations are trying to have a more flatter organizational structure. So it's no longer so much about vertical movement, but really more about lateral movements. But of course, moving laterally, you need to, again, have the right skills to be able to move laterally, to equip yourself so that you're prepared for the role and not be caught off guard when the new challenges arise.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Junior. We're just going to go to the Facebook live chat and take a look at some of the questions that are coming in. So we have a question from Teresa Look. She says, I have not used my credits. Will they expire?
Okay. At this point of time, there are actually 3 tranches of Skills Future credit. So the first tranche, which is way back in the early 2016, it will not expire. But the recent in October tranche, they actually the Skills Future credit will expire in 2025. However, that being said, doesn't mean you've got to quickly rush to use up the Skills Future credit.
Quickly go and learn how to do flower arrangement, WSQ course.
Yeah. No, you just need to plan ahead. And if you are still uncertain on how to use this amount, or these credits, well, as I shared, Skills Ambassadors available to help. Come and speak to us. We will guide you and share with you the resources available to use your Skills Future credit.
That's great because, not everybody, okay, so let's say some of us are already working, but we want to explore different things. So it might not even be in our current field. Like I said, right, there might be some of us who are engineers who want to go off and pick up photography, for example, or social media, or even flower arrangement or cooking. I mean, all of these things are also courses that are available, right? And that we can we use our Skills Future credit to claim those?
In most cases, yes.
Oh, great.
So one of the easiest way to actually identify whether these courses are Skills Future claimable, Skills Future credit claimable, is actually visiting our portal at skillsfuture.gov.sg. Under our course directory, just simple search search for flower arrangement, and if the course pops up, well, 90% of the chance it is actually Skills Future eligible.
This is a partnership with Udemy, if I'm not mistaken, is it?
We do have partners, training partners from all around, from People's Association, Udemy, to respective training partners out in the marketplace as well. So we try to reach out as much as possible so that everyone can have a merit level of interest. Everyone will have their interest met. So if they do come upon certain causes that may not be covered under the Skills Future credit, nothing stops them from writing in to us, and we do see whether if there's a demand. Perhaps, maybe, we will consider that to be under the program as well.
Fantastic. I'm just going to throw in here, hopefully for sustainability, right? If there are courses around that. And once again, my ACLP certification. I'll see you in a bit, Junior. We have another question that's coming from Emeline Kwan. Her question is, how do I top up my Skills Future credits?
Unfortunately, there is, 2 things. One, there's no interest for your Skills Future credit. 2, there is no way to top it up until the next announcement. I do not know when, and I don't think anyone actually knows that. So what will happen is, if you do face with certain challenges and you have utilized all your Skills Future credit, but you're still keen to upskill yourself, nothing stops you from actually coming down. Speak to a Skills Ambassadors. We'll guide you. And we have many, many other funding mechanisms that can help individuals, Singaporeans particularly, in terms of skills upgrading. So it's not just a Skills Future credit. There are other existing programs that can actually help you in terms of aiding your journey to upskill yourself.
That's fantastic news, because especially for those of us who have been unemployed or retrenched, or even if we were in the gig economy, right? And a lot of our job opportunities have not come up. This is also a time where some conversations that I've had with some friends as well, they want to upgrade their skills. They want to go and pay for really top of the line courses, but they can't tap into their Skills Future credit. but they're also like, where do I get, what funding opportunities are there, right, available for them? So I think that's really a fantastic point that you've raised, because that skill, meeting with the Skills Future ambassadors really helps them to be able to figure out what their specific needs are and how those needs can be matched.
Well, I hope this message between you and I, Matilda, we are sharing, the residents tuning in actually can see that. And don't hesitate if you have really any questions, any doubts, or really you just need an additional thinker or a third person to bounce off ideas. A Skills Ambassador is really, really here to help you.
Fantastic. I just want to dive a little bit into the training allowance that you were mentioning earlier with the two SG United training allowances that come in. I mean, for a lot of us also at a time like this, it's a difficult time, especially if you are the sole provider of your family. And, if there isn't income coming in and you can't put food on the table, the question is, how am I, going to spend that time on upgrading my skills, right? Like, I need to be able to support myself and my family, or at least have a source of support for myself and my family. So how does that training allowance with the SG United programs come into the picture?
All right. So with regards to the SG United skills or the mid-career programs, we do actually provide, should you be successful in your application, we will actually provide a training allowance from between 1,002 to 1,005. And reason being as such is the key difference is that for the mid-career, there is actually an additional component whereby you will be attached to companies. During the attachment to companies, this is where after your training, when you're attached to a company, that's where you showcase yourselves. And this actually helps employers to identify potential candidates for their organizations as well. So if you're able to showcase yourself well, it gives an opportunity for the employer to offer you a full-time job then. All right, so increasing your visibility to employers is something that we are trying to do. And because of the longer periods that will be required, hence why we are offering slightly higher training allowance. But of course, bear in mind the training allowance is not meant to replace a salary, but actually to help an individuals defray their learning costs or overcome their training inertia. That can be quite difficult because I think it's getting the knowledge. And of course, next thing is how do I actually put it into practice and formulating it to become a skill sets for myself.
Fantastic. I think the message there as well with regards to the mid-career SG United training packages is about for those of us who maybe 20, 30 years we were working in a specific industry. And, this mid-career program really helps us to be able to then say, I really want to move into digital marketing. But, I don't have any background in it. I didn't work in those kinds of companies. But like you mentioned, it's a great opportunity for them to be mentored by those companies. Maybe you could mention who those companies are.
Okay, we have quite a fair bit of companies already on board, and we are reaching out to more. So I wouldn't feel that it's appropriate to name any of them because these are private companies.
Tell me after the show.
We can have a separate discussion beyond here to really explore. But most of this information and some of the companies are actually found on our portal itself. So if you actually log on to our portal, you are able to then see which are the companies, and perhaps if that is in your interest, you may wish to apply for the programs as well.
That's great. And I mean, as you mentioned, right, this is a fantastic way to be able to be mentored by the company and eventually maybe even get employment, with that company. So, really, really interesting conversation that we've had.
Thank
you so much, Junior, for your time with us. So once again, if you would like to, just really make avail of the Lifelong Learning Institute and all of their Skills Future ambassadors, this is really a great chance for you because these resources, these free resources are there for us. So it's really a good opportunity for us to be able to go off and use these free resources, understand what are some of our own training needs, what are some of the things that we want to do in the future, but also then be able to tap into the existing resources that are available to us. Now, thank you so much for joining us. We have two more guests that are coming up. So if you have any questions related to jobs, upskilling, even the mindset around looking for new jobs, this is definitely the place for you. Drop your questions into the chat. We're going to do our best to answer all of those questions. I will also, if you have specific questions for any of our guests today, drop them into the chat as well so that I can ask them. Now, our next guest is the GM of FastJobs. Her name is Lim Hui Shan, and she's going to be talking to us about where jobs are now. I think this is where what we want to know about, right? Like, you know, all of us are asking this question. And most importantly, how do we get these jobs? Now, if you're looking for a new job or you're curious about the current job market in Singapore, this is definitely a lady you want to listen to. Now, as one of the key recruitment platforms, FastJobs is a portal that employers really turn to when they're hiring new employees. And they've got lots of insights to share with us as well. You can find out more about which employers are hiring, where they're hiring, get insights to help build your profile out that helps you to stand out as well as gain some tips on how to do well in your interviews. Now, this is all about being a prepared job seeker. So let's get right to it. Hui Shan, nice to meet you.
Hi, Matilda. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Hui Shan. So I'm eagerly looking forward to what you have to share with us, especially about FastJobs.
Sure. Let me just bring up the presentation and then I can share a little bit more about where the jobs are right now, some trends, so that we can have more visibility. You can see what's happening in the job space that we see, as well as give you a little bit of tips that we have gleaned over our years working in the hiring space. So a little bit more, what we're going to cover today is really to secure your future job and to share some of the secrets that we have seen. And we'll introduce FastJobs, give you some trends, as well as tell you a little bit more about how you can potentially stand out from other job applicants and some interview tips. So a little bit about FastJobs. If you don't know who we are a mobile app which connects non-executive job seekers to reliable employers. So employers and recruitment agencies basically use our app to post jobs, and job seekers can apply directly to them with just one click by creating your profile. So some of the top companies that use FastJobs to hire include brands that you would be familiar with, including 7-Eleven, Don Don Donki, Domino's, FairPrice, etc. So some trends that we have seen over the past years. So of course, as a job portal, we see where people are applying and what kinds of jobs that they like to apply for. So this basically shows you how competitive some of the roles really are. So job seekers, we know, are most attracted to administrative and customer service roles. So these are in administrative and clerical roles, for example, the average applications per job last year was 83. So you'll be competing with 82 other people when you apply for an administrative clerical jobs, customer service 75, secretaries and PA 66, etc. So you know that when you are applying for these jobs, you're going to have to stand out from them as well. Or one of the other tricks that you could do is to explore roles in other sectors where employers are really constantly hiring. So for example, in warehousing and logistics, I'm sure in 2020, we know that e-commerce has become even bigger than it used to be because of the COVID situation. So companies who are in online retail are consistently hiring for warehousing, logistics staff. So brands like Charles & Keith, Ninja Van, etc. would be hiring for roles in this sector. Hospitality and F&B is also a key sector that is always hiring, so service crew and kitchen crew. Brands like Koi, TWG, McDonald's, KFC are consistently hiring on FastJobs as well. Sales, retail, and marketing, 7-Eleven, Zara, NTUC, Cold Storage, admin roles, of course, and general production operators actually has become quite a big sector as well, who is hiring, especially with the border restrictions, creating more opportunities for Singaporeans and PRs in this space. So Tijia in food manufacturing, as well as Baxter in pharmaceutical manufacturing. So other opportunities that you could really look for is Flexi Work. So this has become more popular. So for example, you can pick up shifts as a runner or rider for Domino's Pizza. There's one in Bedok where you can really, if you live nearby and you're looking just to pick up extra shifts, there's no minimum commitment, and the company basically provides you with e-bikes as well as motorbikes if you have a Class 2 license to basically earn a little bit of extra cash as well, whether it is because you have existing commitments or if you are in between jobs at the moment. So if you are interested, you can scan the QR code to apply and find out a little bit more as well. So essentially, one of the biggest ways to start if you haven't really embarked on your job search or right now you're still looking out is to download the app, and I'll share a little bit more about how you can basically stand out in order to get your next job. So a little bit more on the tips side of things. So if you're not familiar with how to use a mobile job app to get your next job, first is obviously to download it, complete your profile so that you can essentially apply for different jobs just with one click, and then create your resume. If you don't know how to create your resume, you can basically use one click and create it from the profile you've already created on FastJobs. So after that, you can basically use WhatsApp to apply. You can turn on notifications to make sure that you get the latest information from employers who are hiring, as well as look for recommended jobs so that you can explore really who's out there hiring and to apply for these jobs. So some quick tips when you're doing your profile, make sure that your email address is professional. So not crazyboy.happygirl@gmail.com, something that maybe has your name in it would be helpful. Check for spelling and grammatical mistakes simply because you're trying to project a professional image to your employers. And if possible, have a well-taken profile photo. It doesn't have to be professionally taken, but just so that it shows you pleasantly smiling, pleasant disposition on your profile. So a little bit about how COVID has changed the interview process. We asked employers, do you conduct virtual interviews? And right now, actually, it has become more popular with employers. In the service and operational roles, employers will typically still want to see you face-to-face, but they might employ virtual interviews, so over Zoom, over Google Meet, etc., to do the first round of screening before they invite you down to their offices for a face-to-face. So given that virtual interviews are becoming more prevalent, you're going to have some things in mind when you're going through these interviews. So some basic ones first to start off, show up for your scheduled interview. You would be surprised at how many people actually no-show the employers. So they'll be scheduled for an 11 a.m. and at 11:15 they don't turn up, and basically they've just wasted the time of the HR manager. We've known of employers who have basically then blacklisted these job seekers because not being responsible enough to turn up for your scheduled interview, I think, is a #1 no-go. Right? And the next thing is to research the company. Again, stories from employers, job seekers who have gone for interviews basically will ask the employer, excuse me, so what job is this? So if you're going for an interview, please at least make sure you know what role it is for. And Fast Chat is our in-app chat. So when employers reach out to you in the app, do respond regularly and in a timely fashion so that you show the employers that you're really into getting this job. So don't drop out of the interview last minute. Make sure you're not appearing like you're uninterested. And number 3 is something that I think we sometimes just need to be reminded. Don't provide false information just to make your resume or your profile look a bit more attractive. So we've heard of stories where, for example, people don't give their real age. So the employer thought that it was a 30-plus-year-old who was interviewing for a role, but the person was much older. And while you might get into the interview in the first round, ultimately you will be easily found out. So just make sure that you're providing honest and true information in your profiles to make sure that subsequently when you actually do get the interview and get the job, that you would be hired. So essentially, be responsive and responsible. I think that's one of the number one things that you'll be surprised. It's a common complaint from the employers that job seekers may be not responsive and irresponsible. So presenting yourself, some quick tips for virtual interviews. Dress appropriately. Make sure that the interviewer can see your face and display good body language. So I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like. So dress code and demeanor, you may be at home, you may be on your phone doing your virtual interview, but please make sure you're wearing something that is presentable. We've heard of stories, again, of a job seeker who basically went for an interview without a shirt, and we had to remind them to please put on a shirt for your interview. So do wear something at least that looks good and you would wear for a real face-to-face interview. Make sure that you are well presented, maybe not lying down, show some respect for your interviewer. And the next one, which I don't think sometimes people don't realize, is when you're using your video camera, your phone, just make sure that you're showing at least your upper chest and your head with a bit of space around it, and not be too close. So people tend to be a little bit too close. They're holding their phones here just in case people cannot see them. And body language, a lot of roles are customer facing, especially. Don't fidget and look like you are not very sure about what you're doing. Just be calm and confident and project a poised manner. And the last thing is what to say, right? During your interviews, share relevant experiences, be precise and clear. Because ultimately, most of these interviews, within the first 5-10 minutes is when the HR interviewer is going to be making some decisions already. So don't go beat around the bush with things that are irrelevant to the role. Maybe those might be asked later during questions, but in the opening, make sure that you are relevant and sharp and clear so that you're not wasting the HR manager's time. Next thing is really listen to the manager and be open and adaptable, because you never know what they might say. But if you already go in with fixed ideas about what you need the role to be and what you need the employer to be, the chances of finding something that's suitable for you will be much less. And lastly is really just practice. Interviews are nerve-wracking, and by practicing, you just give yourself a little bit more chances for success. Yeah. So lastly, I think specifically about virtual interviews, be familiar with the platform so that you're not on there with a filter on that you don't know how to turn off or don't know how to unmute yourself. So just make sure that you've practiced. You can call a friend, relative, family using the platform and practice a little bit about how you're going to introduce yourself. So an example of what that could look like, write it down, practice it, and that is already a very good start in terms of acing that interview. So we prepare some of these information so that job seekers also can refer to it at your own leisure. So if this is something helpful to you, you can scan this QR code and read more about it later. I know it's been a lot of information, so I tried to put in as much as possible, so you can read it later as well. Okay, and that's all from the sharing. I hope that was helpful to job seekers.
Thank you so much, Hui Shan. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much of information that's available on your portal. It's free.
Yes.
Some of these tips that you were putting up there. Okay, fantastic. So this is definitely where you can go off and you can download those tips. So I wanted to ask you, it was interesting what you were mentioning, right? Employers are telling you about how people are showing up for interviews, topless, with notes, wearing singlet, or or just being a little bit lazy in our appearance. It's kind of strange that we would do that virtually when, before, the pandemic, everybody knew that if you were going to apply for a job, you had to dress well, you had to speak well, you had to at least show some kind of... what are some of the things that you are hearing from employers, the feedback that you get from them when first-time job seekers or even multiple job seekers come to them and and do their interviews?
I mean, other than these feedback in terms of demeanor, appearance, the body language. I think sometimes we get feedback about things like job seekers being very demanding. They have in their heads what they need the employer to be, what the job needs to be, and it's almost as though they're interviewing the employer instead of the employer interviewing them for the role.
I know, I've done a few interviews myself, so I find that quite intriguing. Like, the first few questions actually come at me instead of like, like me being able to get a word in.
Yeah. So typically that tends to not work out as well for obvious reasons. So the ones who are really listening, who are open and a little bit, and demonstrate their sincerity tend to do better in interviews.
So the attitude, right, seems to be what helps people to be able to get employed or maybe even get to the second stage of the interview. How do potential job seekers really need to kind of switch that out? This is considering, you have fresh graduates that are looking for some of these fast jobs. You also have individuals who have maybe been retrenched after working for, 10, 20, 30 years. They have a fixed mindset in terms of what their scope is, in terms of what their pay should be, what kind of packages they used to receive, of which things moved quite quickly, right? In terms of how their job scopes changed, how everybody has to move into digital a lot more. So, what are some of the things that potential job seekers need to internalize, the hard truths that they need to internalize, when they're looking for jobs in the new economy?
I think if we're talking about mid-career switchers, people who may have been retrenched or who are looking for something in a completely different industry sector than they're used to, I think we all, and I mean, I include myself in this as well, because nowadays everyone could find themselves in these situations, is to recalibrate a little bit. Was your previous experience relevant to the role that you're applying for? Does it justify the kind of pay that you might be looking for? And just be more aware of what are the market rates, what are the industry standards that you need to be adjusted to, rather than being unrealistic in demands. So I think that's number one thing, going in armed with the right information about what you're actually interviewing for, to calibrate your expectations. I think that's the most helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Heshan. I guess the million-dollar question is, what are the job scopes that get hired the most? Okay, there are some job seekers out there who are like, oh, I'll take anything. I've got a family to feed. I've got a lot of financial commitments. I'm ready to just take something in the interim, right? Before before the pandemic is solved and market opens up. Let's say people who are in tourism, or maybe even the airline industry, or even in music or performance, so they're willing to just take something for right now. What are those job scopes that get hired quickly and hired the most?
So for FastJobs, we focus on service and operational roles. So the ones that we see are perennially hiring and looking for people: service crew, kitchen crew for F&B. And then cleaning and housekeeping, if that's something that you'd like to do, that's something that they're always short of people as well. And of course, if you can explore security officers, warehousing, logistics assistants, because right now there's a constant demand for those roles as well.
Great. Okay, let's just take a look at our Facebook live chat and see if we've got any questions. All right, we have a question from Mr. Kiat Ho Ang. So his question is, are there flexi jobs that can help the stay-home moms and retirees?
Yes, so very happy to share this one. This was what I covered in my presentation earlier. So roles like delivery runners, riders, nowadays employers are being more open to opening up these roles on a flexible basis. So you can essentially find them on our platform under Flexi Work. You can search for it in the app or on FastJobs. And those are the kinds of roles where you can pick up shifts that work around your schedule. So you don't have to commit to, for example, 5-6 days a week, 9 to 5 flat, or a specific shift flat. You can pick up the shifts on from a week-to-week basis, so that you can add on some extra income for whatever your life circumstances are.
That's kind of handy because, does it ping ping those jobs to you real time, like, whatever flexible hours that are coming to you, or you have to enter in some criterion or details in order for that to happen?
So the available slots will be put on the app, and then you can bid for those slots. So depending on how many slots are available, you can basically schedule yourself maybe about a week, a few days in advance, and then you would be able to turn up for those roles.
So it's almost like Grab for jobs, I guess.
That's the plan, to be able to offer these roles to people so that they can have additional sort of layers of income, additional opportunities to look out for.
So I'm intrigued. When the company was started in 2015, what's the motivation and the intention behind FastJobs? Why FastJobs as opposed to all jobs?
As normal
right?
jobs. So what we do is we started out from a broader job board perspective. So we were incubated under Singapore Press Holdings, and we started out from that background. And we noticed that for service and operational roles, actually, the job seeking behavior is actually quite different from a standard PMET job where you might take a few months to land a job for the hiring manager to select somebody to come join the role. So these are jobs where there is always a very high demand. The resumes might not need to be super complete. You just need some background information. So what we looked at that point in time, 2015, was when mobile apps were not as all over the place as they are today. So we were thinking that something that allows people to really scan through on the go, apply for the right jobs, and to get their jobs really quickly there was a gap in the market at that point in time. So that's how we started FastJobs, and the goal really was to make it super fast, super easy for job seekers to be able to connect to verified jobs, so real jobs from good companies, so that they can basically stay in employment for a longer period of time.
So this is what I find interesting, because it's a startup that then goes off and thinks, how do they then lead this gap in the market, as you mentioned, right? That there are a lot of quick jobs or companies that just really need those jobs to be filled really quickly without all of the too much resume and too many interviews to be done. For startup founders like myself, or social entrepreneurs like myself, a lot of us, to complement the fact that we are operating in such conditions, right, of a pandemic, we are also taking on some fast jobs ourselves. So, do you actually also, put up jobs that are for startups or social enterprises on your portal?
Yes, we do. So the main focus for us is really non-PMET jobs. So for startups and all of that, if you are hiring admin, if you're in the space where you're doing warehousing logistics, for example, and you need warehouse assistance, we put up jobs from all of those companies, as long as they're legitimate companies with the right jobs for our job seekers.
Is there a possibility for them to also kind of utilize that what's it called?
Flexi Work.
Flexi Work,
Yep.
That's right. Because as a startup, right, sometimes we might not want that one full-time role. We might want somebody that comes in maybe a Monday or Wednesday, and this might be actually an opportunity for a lot of startups out there to tap into this feature that you have, so that they can just almost kind of the mid-career thing where, you have somebody that comes in on a Monday or a Wednesday, or maybe does a couple of hours a week, and then from there you can gauge their abilities and maybe explore taking them on full time.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can definitely have that chat as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Did I just throw you a business idea? Great. A lot of things are happening during this chat.
Yeah, because definitely Flexi Work is something that has a lot of demand, and I think both on the employer side as well as on the job seeker side. And really what we're trying to do is just offer more ways and more opportunities for that to happen, and we would do that connection.
Fantastic. So I have one more question to ask you that's coming from our Facebook Live chat. The question is, how do I find jobs that are suitable for seniors in your platform?
So we started this hashtag last year. We were working with Center for Seniors as well, and we wanted to make it easier for employers to signal that specific jobs are welcoming of seniors. So if you search for the hashtag Seniors Welcome, on the FastJobs platform, actually, you would be able to find jobs that employers themselves have said these are suitable and we're welcoming of seniors to apply for the jobs. So that's one of the things that we tried to do to make it easier to find that match between willing employers and willing job seekers.
So there's actually quite a lot of goodies that that government gives for when you hire seniors as well as persons with disabilities. So what are some of the ways that you try to work in that inclusivity or diversity, in terms of some of the job postings that you put out on FastJobs?
So one of the things is we work with partners, for example, with Happy at Bedok and different community partners to share more about FastJobs to their residents. So that is to sort of cover a wider group rather than just purely people who might stumble upon us on Google Play or iTunes Store, who tend to be the younger folks, right? So that's one of the ways we make sure that the community of users who are using us is a more diverse group. And then Seniors Welcome is another one. We work with Center for Seniors to help, who is a partner with us to help seniors on our platform to also find relevant jobs for them. Yeah, so those are some of the ways that we try. Ultimately, we support employers, and so we offer the platform for them to be able to reach out to a diverse group of job seekers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wei Shan. I hope there's going to be a lot more jobs in sustainability that pop up on your platform.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I can help you out with that as well. Trying to figure out how we can do a lot more of that. Thank you, Hui Shan, for joining us.
Thanks, Matilda.
She's the GM of FastJobs Singapore. So once again, if you want to go off and find out a little bit more about FastJobs, this is definitely your opportunity to, download the app. Find out a lot more about the resources that are available from FastJobs. A lot of great tips in there about how you conduct yourself in an interview, either in person or digitally. These are all things that, we really need that information, right, in order for us to understand how to, process that, how to actually get some of these this information that is coming from employers directly and really be able to get super prepared as a job seeker. So that's FastJobs, yeah? You can go off and you can download that app. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of us didn't realize about 2020 and the pandemic was how it just changed the employment landscape. It changed the economy, and some say forever. A lot of the things that we held close to us in terms of our concept of what a job is, what our career is, what our value to our workplace is, has changed. And some of us, have been unemployed. Some of us have been retrenched. Some of us have maybe built companies that we've had to close down because of the pandemic. And there is an unspeakable emotional toll that it has taken on a lot of people, not just in Singapore, but around the world. There is a weight and a baggage that we do carry with us that is not going to serve us moving forward. If you're looking for a new job, if you are looking to just get employed, if you're looking to support your families, or even to be able to, support your financial commitments, beyond just like applying for work, there needs to be a mental shift that occurs. And our next speaker is really somebody that can help us to explore what that is. Talking about mental toughness, strategies for increasing your probability of scoring more goals. We have Mr. Edgar K. Tam. Now, this is really all about how we can release that pressure, right, that comes from looking for a job and all the stress that is accompanied with that. Now, Edgar is really interesting because he's a sport and performance psychologist. Now, he's going to be revealing the parallels between high performance sport and job hunting. Yeah, there is actually a connection, right? Now, in fact, the mental toughness strategies that he's going to be talking about are used by Olympic champions and world record holders. And of course, he is also the psychologist that trains the Singapore national Olympic team. So this guy knows what he's talking about in this area. You know, he's going to be sharing with us practical tips of how we shift our mindset and our perspective, especially around trying to look for a new career. So, yep, let's take it to Edgar. Thank you so much for coming down, Edgar.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to your presentation and all the tips that you can share with us. I'm a big fan of sports psychology in the workplace, so take it away, Edgar.
Thank you very much. One of the things that we realized was that, a lot of times people think when, looking for a job is really stressful, right? And so one of the challenges is to try to bring out the best in themselves. And also at the same time, when they go for an interview, it's really nerve-wracking, I'm sure. And so when I was kind of given the opportunity to speak today, I was thinking, how can I bring in sport, which is what I love also, into this particular little session? So, and I came up with this little title. In fact, this is the first time I'm actually doing it from this perspective. And as I was doing some research, I found that, hey, wait a minute, there's some parallels. And so I'd like to share with the audience today the parallel. And so let me just click on. So the term that I'm using is that job hunting is a team sport. In fact, a lot of times people, when they're looking for a job, they only think that they're only doing it for themselves or that they're alone in this journey. But actually, they're not. And later, I'll share with you why. And in my slide, I just want to share with you the research. So everything that I talk about, henceforth, all based on research or things that have been published in international journals and the like. And what we found in the research was that when people are able to be mentally strong and resilient during stressful times and pressurizing times, they're actually very calm and collected. And they're not flustered. And secondly, they're very focused on what they need to do. They're very, very focused in terms of the action plans and then what they need to do in terms of the execution and the behavioral aspects. And then thirdly, they're able to also have that inner self-belief to know that they can do it and they will be able to be successful. But having said that, being confident, or rather you don't want to be overconfident, yeah, but you want to be confident enough to be able to give yourself a higher probability. It's just like saying when you are, a student, when you study for exams, if you study, there's no guarantee you will score A's, but if you don't study, for sure, you're going to likely fail. So confidence is something you need, but it's not going to guarantee that you will achieve it, but it increases your probability. And last but not least, the latest research, probably over the past maybe less than 10 years, we're seeing that when you leverage on social support, like in a team sport, right, you actually help yourself reduce your stress. And that's a really interesting phenomenon that a lot of people don't know nor appreciate. And so to make it a little bit more simple and less academic, I wanted to share this little slide here that talks about the 5 qualities that I just covered: the ability to stay calm under pressure, staying focused, being confident of oneself, being an overcomer in dealing with the challenges, the mistakes, the setbacks, and even disappointments in your job hunting endeavors. And last but not least, and this is something that I think I want to spend a little bit of time on too, is how do you become a team player in that sense? Okay, so I'll go into each one of those and then we'll talk a little bit about them. And everybody knows this guy. He's the only guy on earth who has won 23 gold medals at the Olympics in swimming. And he said, before the Olympic trials, I was doing a lot of relaxing exercises. You would think that, Michael Phelps, he's world class and all that, world champion and Olympic champion. Nah, he doesn't need that. In fact, he does, because in the high performance setting, right, the spotlight's on you and the whole world's watching you. When you're going for a race, everything's on you, and internet and TV and whatnot. So he has to learn to kind of, stay calm in the midst of that pressure so that he can then perform at his best. Because in swimming, if you're too tense and you're too tight, right, you're not going to swim well. So that will affect your performance. And so what is the scientific evidence for this? In fact, there's some study that was published in October thereabouts, September thereabouts last year, that said that, and showed evidence that when you do centered breathing, you help reduce the stress. And so one way is to lengthen your out breath. So this can be useful when you're, rushing for a meeting maybe, and then, you're going to step into that meeting interview, and you want to just slow down your breathing. So the example here would be, let's say you take 4 seconds to breathe in, you want to take about 6 to 8 seconds to breathe out. By doing so, you're actually tricking your mind or body into thinking that you're actually calm. Imagine a baby lying on its cot, face up. And you actually watch a baby when it's sleeping. It has no stress, zero whatsoever. And you realize that their breathing pattern is actually something like that. The out breath is actually longer than the in breath. So that's something you can do, let's say, for example, during the interview or just before the interview, so that you can then stay calm and your mind is clear, and then you can do what you need to do in terms of your job hunting endeavors. The other one is to stay focused. So Usain Bolt, the world's fastest man on earth, well, he just retired last year or year before. Worrying gets you nowhere. If you turn up worrying about how you're going to perform, you've already lost. Now, when I look at this phrase, I thought, hey, interesting, because he doesn't talk anything about running, And if I put this in the context of looking for a job and going for an interview and all of that process, you actually realize that, hey, this is relevant. All of us do worry. And a lot of times we worry about the things we cannot control. So one of the things that we've seen is that world-class performers, like Olympic athletes, they actually have a plan. They have a plan of action that focuses on things that they have control. And the other thing that they do often is that they focus on what they want, not what they don't want. So this is one of my favorite exercises. And I want you, for the audience right now, to listening to me now, to try this, okay? And do exactly as I say. Do not think of a pink elephant. Stop thinking of a pink elephant. Put the pink elephant out of your mind. You know what? Elephant? Pink colored one? Yeah, stop thinking of a pink elephant. Now pause and stop for a moment. What happened there in your mind? Yeah, you likely had a pink elephant or something pink or an elephant or both, right? And studies actually show that when you try to kind of tell yourself not to do something, the image of what you're trying not to do actually is implanted somewhere inside there. And the likelihood of you doing it is actually higher. So for example, don't make that mistake again. I love that word again because when you use that word, it repeats in your head. So the movie of the mistake is actually repeated one more time. So be careful what you say, because what you're focusing on in your thoughts and the words you use does determine how you would actually feel and also perform. The third skill is really being confident of yourself. And as I've said just now in my early part of this little session, having confidence is no guarantee you will be successful, but it increases your probability. And there's also something else that is different when you're confident. And this example from Roger Federer, he says it. He says, I dreamed, I believed, and I really hoped that I could do it. So guess what? I put in a lot of work and it paid off. Here's something we see in behavior. That when someone is confident, they're more likely to put in the effort. When they're not, guess what? They tend to back off. That could possibly explain why some people, they apply for a job and then it's time for them to go for that job or interview. They don't turn up. It's likely that they were not confident in the first place. Now, again, there might be, there might be other reasons for that, but I believe that could be one possible explanation why some people do that to themselves. So then another strategy that has been shown in the research is that simulations help increase the stress. Simulation here means that you're simulating, say, for example, a scenario in a role play for a job interview, right? Let's say you get your friend or your family member to help you and ask you tough questions, right? Or your network that, are in the industry. And then so by simulating an interview, for example, it might cause you stress because it is potentially difficult for you and the person's asking you really difficult questions. So, and therefore that will cause that stress to build up in you. But in doing it a few more times, you actually find that your level of confidence increases because your mind has got some practice, so to speak, or has got some experience for you to rely on, so that in the future, when you actually go for an actual interview, a live interview with somebody, employer or something, you're more likely to be relaxed and calmer because the brain has already seen it in some form or fashion before. So that increases your ability to actually stay, more calm and more confident also at the same time. And then the fourth one is, and this is, our, probably a famous story here. Yeah, our Joseph Schooling, he won the Olympics in the 2016 games. But a lot of people don't know that in the London Olympics, 4 years prior, that he actually got, well, unfortunately, and this is public information, so I can share, he got disqualified for the games. And it was that time that he said this in this quote. He says, sometimes you hit rock bottom, but everyone does at some point in their life. The important thing is to get back up. And this is the epitome of mental toughness, if you ask me. The ability to bounce back from a rejection, from even a failure or a mistake or anything else that you made, so that at the end of the day, you don't give up. And this is what we see in champions, in the ability to overcome the obstacles, the challenges, and the things like that they face. So it's so important that we learn to pick ourselves up. When the job interview that we applied for didn't quite, we didn't quite get it, or, we got, well, I use the word hammered, but, the interviewer, gave us a really hard time, and we, probably even cannot forgive the guy or person for saying things to us or asking difficult questions. But I guess that's part of it, because they are also doing their job to want to find the best people. And so in a sense, don't take it too personally. Use it as a learning opportunity. Pick up some lessons there, perhaps even ask the person, how can I do better? And then use that as an opportunity to bounce back again. So the key here in becoming mentally tougher and elite performer, and this is what we see. I mean, let's face this. Olympic champions, when you look at them, you often see only their successes. When you look at entrepreneurs, you only often see their successes, but you don't see the failures often. And often it's not talked about, maybe. But if they do share, of course, you know about them. But more often than not, athletes fail more than they win. Think about this in sport. Every competition that you go into, you have a probability or chance of losing, because there's only going to be one winner. Yeah, maybe if you're lucky, two winners at the same time, but rarely so. More importantly, that every person who goes into the competition would be, well, a loser if they didn't come in first. Well, you could call yourself first runner-up, second runner-up. Well, that's a nice title for, first loser and second loser. I mean, I'm just being frank about it. But the point is this, that you will face that failure once in a while. And don't take it personally. Use that as an opportunity to bounce back and then try again. In fact, studies show also that a lot of times people, when they fail, make mistakes, or they face setbacks, they actually trying to not think about it, or they're trying to just push it away or even suppress the thought. In fact, one strategy, and the studies show too, is that when the going gets tough, acknowledge it, and then use that, kind of like embrace it. Don't fight it, and just know what it is and be real about it and accept the reality, and then use that opportunity to say, hey, this is where I am now. How can I just do a little bit better the next time? And that's all you want to do, so that you don't kind of hammer yourself and just beat yourself up inside, but rather just learn to acknowledge, embrace, and move on, and try to overcome it by finding better ways in doing the things that you did. I know I'm giving it quite generic, because this applies to a lot of things that we do also. And then the last mental skill is being a team player. Now, I know team player here you would think of a team. Well, in a sense, it is. And LeBron James, in his quote here, he says, no matter how good one individual is, it takes a whole team to win a championship. Likewise, in getting a job, you are not alone. In fact, you may want to consider the fact that there could be other people in your family, your friends, your network, who can actually help you and support you and provide you with advice, or mentor you, or even give you ideas and tips. And for some of them, they may have even gone to some interviews or kind of certain jobs that kind of something that you want to do. You could also leverage off their experiences so that you don't have to travel alone in this journey. And this is really interesting. This research just came out in January this year. And in a summary of that research, they found that mentally distressed people do not necessarily lack resilience. So when I studied this paper, I thought, wow, this is interesting. What it's basically saying is that people who we think are not resilient actually are, because they are applying those coping strategies. But what made them not so successful, excuse me, was the fact that they didn't seek that support from their family, their friends, and the people around them. They kind of they did it alone. And so I think one mistake in their journey was that they did not leverage off the network that they had. And so with this session today, it's really about this team attitude that we're taking. And we're here to share with you knowledge and experiences and tips from myself and the other two previous speakers. We are your social support. We are also your team in a sense, because we want to help you succeed. And because when you succeed, Singapore succeeds, the economy picks up, and it's an ecosystem that we're creating. So by helping you, we help ourselves, because then there are demands for services and goods and things like that. So you can see that actually that if we think of it that way, the need for us to work together is really important during this pandemic. And because of the borders being closed right now in this current situation, we need to work within ourselves, right? So we need to help each other out, and we're a team. We're Team Singapore. So that's the attitude that I think we should take as a way for us to seek that support. And remember, the family and the friends and the network are also important people for you to leverage on. And so in summary, if you want to be able to handle the stresses and the pressures of job hunting, these are the 5 core skills you need to have. 1, stay calm no matter what. 2, stay focused on your task. Have a plan, an action plan, so that you don't get distracted by what's going on around you. 3, have that inner belief. You need it for you to journey this period, especially during this time in this pandemic. 4thly, failures, mistakes, setbacks are a part of life. Expect it to happen. Just acknowledge it, embrace it, and then learn from it and bounce back. And lastly, leverage off the people around you. I'm sure they're happy to support you. So give your best, and I'm sure things will fall in place. And last but not least, I want to give you some free resources on our website. You can check it out at sportsiteconsulting.com. And there's a free audio segment, or you can just go to bit.ly/mental toughness audio, and you can just listen to the audio scripts. These are what we call mental preparation, relaxation, and imagery exercises that can help you calm yourself down, can help you visualize success. And that's what we teach, by the way, to our elite athletes and our performers when we work with them, when they're preparing for major competitions. And treat your competition, or treat your interview process as a competition, because you are competing against other job hunters too. And with that, I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tam. That was really, really interesting. I kind of wanted you to continue going. Right? There were a couple of aha moments that were happening with the crew here while you were talking. You could see them going especially the bit about the pink elephant, right? I wanted to come to the champion mindset. Like in Singapore, we always wow, you champion, are you? And it's got that tinge of little sarcasm and negativity in there. This comes back to that visualization aspect where a lot of us, speaking as myself as a Singaporean, a lot of us focus on what we don't want. I really don't want to go, and if I have to look for a new job, I don't want to do something that is so-called beneath me. This is some of the things that people might be encountering, or I don't want to. I've spent 30 years honing my skills in one area, and then you ask me to go and do another job. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to integrate to a team where I don't know these people. How do you suggest really being able to get out of that mindset and focus on what it is that we do want?
Actually, a lot of times we are in this comfort zone, and this is human nature. We have this tendency to, be comfortable with what we're so used to. And so a lot of times that's what holds us back. So a lot of times you need to kind of be able to kind of step out of that comfort zone and be mentally prepared. Now, a lot of times people think, elite performers and successful people, they're successful, they're lucky. Actually, they're not. Is that they actually prepare themselves mentally before they engage into a performance scenario or situation. So that's one of the things that I feel people need to do, is that need to know that no job is ever going to be perfect. Right? So there will be things or parts about the job that will be tough and challenging and kind of outside your comfort zone. Take it as part of the equation, if you will, and just use that as an opportunity to extend yourself. Use that opportunity to learn something new. Use that as an opportunity to explore, so that you don't stress out. I think Singaporeans have a tendency to complain on a lot of things.
Or stress ourselves out.
And stress ourselves out unnecessarily. So let's enjoy the moment. And I think we've forgotten that. We're
To
too
reduce the
outcome.
kanchong?
Yeah, just enjoy the moment as you are.
I mean, I understand what you mean. It's also coming from the perspective of people who, the layers of baggage and the layers of pressure that came together with the pandemic, right? Especially for people that suddenly became unemployed overnight. You know, I mean, I'm from the music industry. Like so many peers and friends of mine who had to close shop, you know, and then they find themselves maybe having to survive or keep the family alive by driving or delivery or even working in warehouses. You know, so it's difficult for them to reduce that worry, right? A lot of them don't sleep for like, you know, I have a good friend of mine who does, he sometimes works for 72 hours straight because there's a fear of, you know, if I don't like kanchong or like, you know, or put in this effort, what will I get, right? Like, how do I even support myself or my family or maybe even my staff? So is there like a practical tip that you could give us, right, to just like step out of the comfort zone of the negativity or the fear in order for, you know, something that you might teach maybe a famous Olympic swimmer that you might be working with or Olympic athlete, right? How to just kind of step out that comfort zone of that fear and just like one practical step that we can, and all of us would be able to do to switch that off a bit.
In fact, in one of the radio interviews with Joseph Schooling when he came back from the Olympics, he was live on radio, and the radio journalist or interviewer asked him, you know, at the blocks when you were about to jump into the pool, weren't you worried or concerned about, you know, the other competitors? I mean, they are also world class. I mean, remember when you go to the Olympics, everyone who is a competitor there are champions in their own right, and some of them are world champions and prior Olympic champions like Michael Phelps, who was beside him. And
Like right next to you, right?
exactly, just next.
Breathing heavily next to you.
Yeah. And what happened was, in his answer, Joseph Schooling gave me what, in my mind, a textbook answer. Was the perfect answer anyways, but it was good. He said, I was only focused on my race strategy. Those were the words that I heard, and I remember very clearly, 5, 6 years ago. I was focusing on the strategy. So when you look at Olympic athletes, if you think about it, when they're about to do their competition or they're in competition, they're worried about whether they will win. I mean, that's natural. I mean, why am I going for competition when I'm going there to lose?
The
Unless you
entire
go in
country
Kelong
is
there lah.
looking, the
Yeah.
entire country is watching you, right? On
Exactly.
multiple platforms.
Even more pressure because the whole world's on you. Not in just your own country, but other countries too, right? And bookies maybe, I don't know.
Even
But-
more pressure.
Exactly. So what happens is that one strategy we've looked at in terms of research in sport and performance psychology is that focus on what you can control and focus on, in fact, I talked about it just now, focus on the plan of action. What is it you need to do? So for your friend, as long as he reminds and assures himself that I'm doing exactly what I need to get my business going or to get my revenue in, I should take care of myself still because I need to rest. I need to sleep. And
Yeah.
if you don't, well, guess what? You will also get sick. And then when you're sick, that makes it even more difficult for you to get back up. So one of the things that in sport we always do this is this, that hard training, as resting rather, is as equally as important as hard training. Think about it. How the body works is this. When you work out and you do work out in the gym, you train physically and really hard, your body actually breaks down. The muscle actually breaks down when you are, you know, after exercising, especially hard work.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So how do you build your muscle back up? Guess what? Through good diet and sleep. Without those two, you will never be able to build back up.
So you can't just like, you know, like hit the gym, keep chonging, increase weights and all of that, right? But
No.
then like you're not doing the other part, which is the rest and recovery,
Yes.
which is essential to actually strengthening the muscle.
Exactly. So in high performance sport, in the teams that I work with, rest and sleep is part of the recovery, is part of the training. You don't do that, you will suffer later.
And diet.
And diet, yes.
That means steamed chicken breast meat with broccoli kind of diet, right?
Yeah, well, yes, most of the time. Healthy food, I guess.
I see. Well, I mean, that's really interesting because I start to see it in myself as well. You know, like I mean, I'm not the fittest person around, but like I've tried to take this year to spend a little bit more time resting, trying to step out of the fear. It was very tiring. And so maybe doing a bit of sport, it does really help to reframe the mindset, right? But I like what you said about focusing on strategy, because once you've come to the point where you're standing next to Michael Phelps, no amount of kanchong is going to help you, move 1 to 2 seconds faster than him, right? Or it's all down to you have to execute already. Yes. You can't be looking left or right. I think that's a very Dragon Boat thing or paddling thing where don't look left or right. Just, focus on the front. But then there's something that occurs to the best athletes in the world, right? We're talking about Tiger Woods. We're talking about the names, the big names in basketball, your Michael Jordans, your everything, when they encounter injury. And it's unexpected, right? They won't know when it's coming to them, right? Somebody might knock into you, or footballers, right? Multi-million-dollar footballers get kicked in the shin, and this is very similar to what occurred to a lot of people, I would hazard to say in March 2020 when the pandemic hit. It almost felt as if it came out of nowhere. We had no idea. Nobody was prepared. And people who, had stable jobs or always were like, even if there's a recession, my job will always be there. Hotel and tourism, everybody's always traveling. As a pilot or in aeronautical, nothing will happen. And then we have this, right, that has occurred. So, when an injury occurs to an athlete, almost even a life-changing injury, how do they get out of the trauma? One of the quotes that was mentioned in here was about trauma. How do they step out of that mental trauma in order for them to then recover? Like you said, we're always looking at a recovery story, right? Oh, it's great media, it's a fantastic Netflix documentary, but then the actual work, right? What goes into that? The stuff that you do day to day with those athletes.
Right. I used to work in a sports medicine center, and I saw a lot of athletes who were injured. And so my role was to also help them recover and come back quickly, because the longer they are sidelined, the less opportunities they have to train and compete, right? So the role for me was to get them quicker, get back onto back to normalcy as quick as possible. May not be 100% because injury means that could be something broken or not perfect yet. So one way is you realize that after an injury or something bad that has happened, you tend to replay the experience in your head.
Yeah, and then the fear comes back again.
Yeah.
And it just keeps it's
Exactly.
a never-ending cycle, right?
Exactly. So it makes the person be more stressed, worry even more. And so the next time, let's say when they go for the interview or something, they get even more nervous because the brain is trying to protect them by reminding them of that old past experience that kind of is triggering itself back up again. So one psychological strategy we work with athletes with is to get them to kind of override the old memory with a lesson learned. So for example, I asked this question: if you could go back in time and redo it again, relive that part of your experience again, how would you do it differently? So I want them to think about the correct response. I want to think about the appropriate behavior or the approach that they have taken, anything that would have changed history in their minds. Besides, we do this to ourselves all the time. There are a lot of our memories of the past we tend to forget, because of the fact that we kind of think of different things and want to see certain things in our past that we kind of make alterations to our memory. So a lot of our memories of the past are actually not the true memories of our real past. So if that happens in normal kind of memories of the past, can't we also do the same for those that are not normal, in the sense of that those particularly were stressful ones, those were unsuccessful ones, or we fail in some of those? See ourselves, change that history in our heads. So learning the lessons. It's just like saying when you were in school, when we did math, when you have a wrong operation in your math.
That is a source of trauma for me, maths.
Yeah, so what did your teacher get you to do? Very basic, right? Find the right answer or get the right solution and
show the working.
Show the working in a correct sequence and maybe do a couple more times. That's exactly the same approach you can use.
Or continuously write it on the chalkboard.
Well,
Maybe that was my education.
maybe that was the old school way. Now I don't think there's any more chalkboard, but yeah, digitally maybe. Yeah. So that's one very powerful strategy, simple. And so if it was a mistake or something that, didn't come out as well, one strategy is to go back in time and think about how could I have done it better, and who could I leverage on, the team that I could, seek help from, and the people that I could help from also, and also what can I say, how can I do it better, stuff like that. So I think it's a way to just kind of override it, kind of update your software. In this case, the software is the memory. That's it.
Just update the code, right?
Yeah.
Revisit the injured code. That's fantastic. I want to pick up on a word that you mentioned there about team. I think for a lot of people where this traumatic experience of losing a job, I don't think a lot of us realize, right, how important the job is to us until you lose it, or how it's so much a part of your character or your life, right? Your colleagues, the place that you go to work. I mean, you spend so many hours there until it's gone, or you have to find something else to do. So that word team, I think maybe the source of a lot of stress for individual people are they feel that they have to do it themselves, especially if, let's say, you are the sole breadwinner. There's this stress on you, right? That maybe you have kids and you have to support them or support the family. You're thinking to yourself, okay, so I'm doing my skills retraining. I get maybe 1,200 from there. I'm doing my delivery job, delivering food, maybe a couple of thousand from there. I'm driving Grab. How am I going to, what is my future? How am I going to support my family? How am I going to do all of that? And there is that thing, right? There's the I in there where they feel as if it's them having to single-handedly carry that weight themselves. So when you were talking about team and LeBron James and the importance of that team, right, or that sense of support, how important is it for us who are very typically I have to solve this problem myself, to switch our mindset towards a team? And what are simple ways that we can start to do that and get our team involved? Is that our home team, family, or ex-colleagues, or as you mentioned, support? How do we do that?
Right. So the most important thing would be approach the people who are less likely to reject you first.
Because, that's a nice one. Okay.
Because otherwise, they will say no. Then what will happen is you have a negative experience from that rejection. I mean, who likes to be rejected? Nobody. So I'm sure you know who are the people who, first of all, are important to you, whom you respect, and also people that are, open to supporting you and seeking help. So that's one way to start off with. And, family and friends would be great. Ex-colleagues also would be great. And people that you kind of kaki with. And that's so important, right? And also, I think it's that ego thing, I would think, sometimes. We don't want to also make ourselves look not so good, if you will. And also, I think Asians also in particular are a little bit worried about, I don't want to bother people,
Face issue, right?
Yeah, and face issue. So I think these two. But I think as human beings, we are concerned about others. We do. I mean, that's in our DNA, right? And that's how we survive as a race. And so the need for us to seek support. In fact, there was new research that showed that not only when you receive social support that you help you relieve your stress, by giving social support, you actually also help yourself. Yes, I know it sounds really strange, but giving help, supporting others actually helps you feel better, less stress. So I think it should be something we should cultivate.
Yeah.
So you don't wait until when you have a problem, then you start to seek help. But I think you should constantly learn to give. Give first. And then people are more likely to help you and give you help and support when you need help. I think that's an important mentality. I think I like this metaphor, this story about people in heaven and earth, heaven and hell rather, and they all have this super long chopstick, and they have this big cauldron of food. I mean, there are different variations to this story.
I've seen the video or something like this on social.
And the chopsticks are just too long for you to eat from. But the people in hell are the ones who try to eat themselves and they die hungry, literally. But people in heaven are having a lovely time, having the same environment, having the same restrictions, but they feed each other. And that metaphor really, when I heard about it or thought about it, it really struck home the message of teamwork. So the teamwork here is what that means.
Yeah.
Not really playing a sport per se, but I mean, it's a metaphorical concept that I think we need to not forget. Because all the other 4 skills I talked about, being calm, being focused, being confident of yourself, and being an overcomer, these are all individualistic skills.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, because there are occasions where we have to stand on our own 2 feet. For example, in an interview, you have to do it yourself. No one else is going to come for your help. But outside of that, as you prepare for that job hunting, the job interview, and even post-interview, those are things you can seek the social support. So I guess there's a role for everything, and this is what this team thing is about.
Fantastic. We've got just one more question. I wish that we could chat about this a lot more, because this is helping me actually. This is almost like my own personal a therapy session, right? But we have a question from Mr. Dale Chong. His question is, during this pandemic, many businesses have been impacted greatly. I've come to know many an entrepreneur who've since lost their calm, confidence and focus. Many have repivoted their businesses, but with no light at the end of the tunnel, it is tough to find confidence in alternative plans. So what would your advice be to them?
Interesting, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and when March came, my business also suffered because I do a lot of training and coaching, and all my classes were all cancelled, and all my opportunities for face-to-face sessions were also dwindled to almost zero. And I pivoted, and I went everything online. So now I do everything online and not afraid of doing it even globally. I can actually reach the world. So in my mind at that time was that I needed to trust that, I made the right decision, and I was trying to anticipate what's going to happen. And when we look at high performance sports in the Olympics, right, an elite athlete, they always anticipate what the opponent's going to do.
Yes, they train for that actually. They watch videos of them.
Yes, and they study the opponent, and they think of different options that are available for them should their opponent do something. So I also thought about that, and I said, okay, now if I go into this, I'm going to spend money. Yes, I have to, because nothing's for free. But at the same time, if I don't do it, and if this pandemic lasts longer than I am anticipating it, then I'm in trouble, because I cannot have any revenue sources. So the other strategy I took was I did what we call multiple streams of income, meaning I'm not stuck on one job or one source. I look at other sources, and I found ways to get income and revenue. In fact, I'm busier now than I ever was, but I'm not complaining. Again, we won't know how long this pandemic is going to last. Yes, there's the vaccination and all that, but there's also mutation and other variants coming out. We don't know how this will respond in the longer term, mid to long term. So I'm taking the view that we won't be normal till 2023. So my question to myself is, what can I do to sustain myself? Yes, I might be working harder than not because I don't know where the end goal is, but I'm just going to focus on, the strategy, the game plan. My game plan is multiple sources of income, and be creative, be seen in the public. And today's session is one of those. It's my way of branding and letting people know I exist. Mm-hmm. And though it is at my own time cost, but I'm doing it to share. So if I give you, I hope you will be successful and you won't forget me. But you see, that's, I think, something that we all need to think. And look at alternative sources, be creative, come up with new ways. I always feel that sometimes whatever that has always been done need not necessarily be done the same way. Can we do it better? Can we be more efficient? Anything that can, make yourself stand out from the rest of the crowd is so crucial. Mm-hmm. And yesterday I had a long day. I started 8:30. I didn't end till about 1 a.m.
Yep.
I knew I should have slept a little bit more, but I had about 8 hours of sleep, yes, before coming here.
Entrepreneurs hustle, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but you need to rest too.
Yes. So I'm going to have my brunch after this.
Excellent. I'm available.
All right.
But thank you so much, Edgar. I think, that answer really helps not just the entrepreneurs or like people running their own businesses, but helps everybody that is, struggling in the economy right now. It's really, really something that we don't talk about a lot. We do need to, once we fix that strategy and just focus on that, I think your advice is just to go Joseph schooling on it, right? Even though you're gonna race with your mentor, right, or your idol right next to you. So once again, thank you to our guest. That was Mr. Edgar K. Tam, who is a sport and performance psychologist that was talking about mental toughness and resilience. Now, also on the show previously, we had Mr. Junior Lim Tu An, who is from the Lifelong Learning Institute. We also had Miss Lim Hui Shan, from FastJobs Singapore. So from all of us here at Heartbeat at Bedok, we really want to thank you for taking this time on a Saturday morning to chat to us, to ask your questions, to also tune in. This is stuff that's on the top of our minds, jobs, how to upskill, but hopefully you've learned something valuable with us today. So my name is Matilda. From all of us here at Heartbeat at Bedok, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you.